Hello, everybody, and welcome today to our webcast. We will be discussing clinical data science, focusing on leveraging a modern data architecture to perform advanced analytics with your clinical data. My name is Tim Tague. I'm a data and analytics consultant here at Thorogood, based in our Boston office, and I'm joined by my colleagues Fernando and Marina, based in our Sao Paulo, Brazil location. Before we begin, just a brief agenda of what we'll be discussing today. We'll start with an introduction of who we are here at Thorogood. Next, we'll cover a few clinical data science use cases that are made possible within a modern data architecture, which is our third point here, where we'll talk in more detail about this modern data architecture. And lastly, we'll cover advanced analytics and data science, some of the benefits, challenges, and how specific technologies can help with these challenges. But first, for those of you who don't know Thorogood, we are an independent, global professional services firm specializing in data and analytics strategies, solutions, and services. We are a global company operating in London, Philadelphia, Boston, Singapore, Sao Paulo, and Bangalore. We offer a full range of services, including strategy and roadmaps, full design and implementation, through to training and support. Our philosophy at Thorogood is rooted in ensuring our solutions are delivered in a way that considers the breadth of technical possibilities while being strongly guided by business goals. Here you'll see a selection of some of our customers. We work with a wide range of blue-chip customers across a range of sectors, including but not limited to pharma and life sciences, consumer goods, financial services, and insurance. We are an independent consultancy in that we don't partner with an individual technology, but rather with a range of technology vendors. We partner with the main cloud providers and many other technology providers as well. Today's webcast isn't necessarily about one particular cloud provider or technology, but we will see later on examples within Databricks and how Databricks can support advanced analytics and machine learning. So first, we'll discuss a few use cases for clinical data science. This is really just scratching the surface in terms of the types of problems that can be solved, but will help in giving insight into some of the possibilities. Briefly, before we jump into some specific use cases, I just want to highlight that the machine learning and data science that we'll discuss today are really valuable for understanding clinical data and complement with the traditional approaches. We'll discuss later about kind of what we mean by the advanced analytics and machine learning and the differences between these kind of two groupings. What we want to call out is how machine learning can provide insights beyond the traditional methods. There often may still be a need for these traditional approaches, but utilizing machine learning can offer a new lens or angle into the data beyond what has been learned in these traditional approaches. All right, so first data science use case will be about predictive modeling. So there are many examples of predictive models, such as a model for optimizing dosing or predicting side effects, and many more. But first, what we'll talk about is a predictive model for predicting response to a drug. So by looking at the baseline characteristics of the patients in the clinical trial, can you characterize if they would or would not respond to the drug? This can most simply be set up as a binary classification problem. Did the patient respond or did they not respond? You can use a number of different types of models, including logistic regression, random forest, or gradient-boosted trees. And due to the nature of these models, they can often be very difficult to interpret the results. But within Databricks, which we'll discuss a lot more about later, you can access open source packages such as SHAP, or Shapley Additive Explanations. SHAP is a game theoretic approach that can help interpret machine learning models. It provides a way to understand the impact that individual features, such as age, sex, blood pressure, or BMI here, have on the model outcome. Depending on the model, depending on data volumes or other factors, it can be difficult to build a model that is perfectly accurate and reliable. However, even if you're not building a perfect model, there's still a lot that can be gained from the results of this model. You can evaluate feature importance, for example, using SHAP here, to either validate prior research or to identify features that were not previously thought to be important. Another interesting insight that can come out of modeling for response is how this could impact trial design. If there are certain tests done or certain data acquired that have no impact on response to the drug, you can remove these from future trial designs to save time, effort, and money. The next example we'll discuss uses natural language processing, or a model for transforming text to features. In the clinical field, there are many data points that are contained within common text. Whether it's medical history records, patient visit notes, or patient survey results, it would be extremely beneficial to take this common text and transform this into data points that are interpretable for machine learning models. So on the right here, you can see a basic example of some plain text coming from patient visit notes across multiple patients. Using natural language processing, this plain text can be converted to structured features that could be used for building machine learning models. With the recent advancements in AI and large language models, we can start to think about how much further this natural language processing could be taken within the clinical data field. Next example is patient stratification, or a model for grouping patients. This is a clustering or classification problem. As you can see on the right here, you have a group of unclustered data. Each point here would represent an individual patient plotted across various metrics. By using certain algorithms, these can be clustered into subgroups, as you can see on the right here with the cluster data. One such algorithm that can be used is a k-nearest neighbors algorithm, which uses proximity calculations to classify or predict the grouping of an individual point. And many insights can be gained by clustering patients into subgroups, including insights into dosing, potentially predicting response to treatment, again shaping trial design, identifying risk factors, or predicting adverse events common across a subgroup. Another model we'll discuss is a survival model, and this is used where time to event data is important. So this could be time to disease progression, time to failure of a medical device, or time to death. The traditional approaches for modeling time to event include a Kaplan-Meier estimator to estimate survival curves for subsets of the population, considering actual events as well as censoring of the data. A sample curve here on the right shows for subsets of the population what the cumulative survival percentage would be at a given point in time. Another would be Cox proportional hazards, which assesses the impact of individual features on a hazard ratio, where a hazard ratio is a relative hazard rate between subgroups of a population. Then you can use this hazard ratio to estimate the risk over time. Both of these methods can be developed within a modern data architecture, but on top of this, and in terms of advanced analytics and machine learning, you could use decision trees, neural networks, or other methods to predict survival probabilities over time. You're able to accomplish similar results to these traditional methods, but may be able to see a new angle or uncover new findings through these advanced methods. Again, similar to some of the prior discussion on predictive modeling for response, even if you're not able to build a perfect survival model, you can still evaluate feature importance to identify and validate prior research or identify features that were not previously thought to be important. Lastly, we'll discuss a synthetic control arm. A synthetic control arm is a type of control arm generated from external sources, as you can see on the right here, taking a few external sources and generating this synthetic control arm. And this is really useful when a randomized control group is not necessarily available, feasible, or ethical. And these external sources may include public health records, disease registries, data from other clinical trials, or other places. The process involves taking this real data gathered from other sources as an input, training a generative model from it, and then using this model to generate synthetic data. Decision trees are often used to fit a generative model and sometimes other deep learning techniques. Again, synthetic control arms are really useful when it may not be feasible to have a control group, such as for rare diseases where there wouldn't be enough individuals to join the study, or for longer running trials where you may not want to have patients in a control arm for an extended period of time. Some benefits of generating synthetic control arm include exposing fewer patients to the placebo or best available treatment when they might truly need the treatment, to enhance the validity of a single arm trial, and to reduce time and cost by not needing to recruit as many people to the trial. So as we wrap up discussing these few various clinical data science use cases, again, just kind of scratching the surface on some of the possibilities. These are all made possible by utilizing a modern data architecture with specific technologies and specific tools. This modern data architecture provides the storage, compute power, accessibility of open source packages, and much more to allow for these clinical data problems to be solved through data science and analytics. I will now pass off to Marina to discuss more about this modern data architecture.
Thank you, Tim. Let's look at some aspects of a modern data architecture and how that aligns with clinical trial data. The modern data architecture starts with a data source layer. This data can be semi-structured or unstructured, and this architecture can handle a variety of different data sources. One path that the data can take is directly into a data lake, where it moves through different layers as the data gets cleansed, transformed, and tested for quality before going into production. A standard data architecture will usually start with a raw layer, which can also be named a bronze layer depending on the naming convention that is used by the organization. This layer is where the data lands in its raw form without any type of transformation being applied. From raw, it then moves to processed, or the silver layer. Here the data starts to receive transformations, such as filtering unnecessary fields, handling missing values, joining on different datasets, and others. Then the final layer is called output or gold layer. This is where data is structured and optimized for consumption by end users and by downstream applications. Here the data is usually normalized, indexed, and query optimized. Within the architecture, there can also be an exploratory layer or a sandbox area, which is a stage where data scientists can run experiments and analysis without affecting the production data and without incurring the cost of full-scale analytics. Here, it is possible to analyze the data, test and apply models, and start to gain valuable insights. With this process, the experiments that are successful and selected can then be applied into production data at full scale. As the volume of data grows in the world, we've seen a real increase in the use of flexible and cost-effective approaches to store all sorts of data. Specifically today, we are going to talk about data lakes. A data lake is a central storage repository that can hold structured, semi-structured, or unstructured data. Some examples of structured data in the medical field include patient demographics, lab results, and clinical measurements, while unstructured data could include imaging files or free text clinical notes that, as Tim mentioned before, can be then analyzed using natural language processing models. The ability to hold different types of data is due to a principle called schema on read, meaning that, contrary to a data warehouse, there is no predefined schema into which data needs to be fitted before being stored. It's only when the data is read during processing that it is parsed and adapted into a schema as appropriate. Data lakes also allow data to be stored in open source formats, and that allows the use of common languages like Python, R, or Alteryx, for example, to be used in processing and analysis. Another attractive feature of a data lake is that they are usually configured on a cluster of inexpensive and scalable hardware. This allows data to be ingested into the lake, be processed, and become ready to be used whenever needed without having to worry about storage capacity. Data lakes support not only batch but also streaming data. This means that data sources such as those originating from sensors, IoT, or patient monitoring devices, for example, can be processed in real time, contributing to fast decision-making. Given the lower cost to store large volumes of data, you can store virtually everything. And by using open formats that are shared across different technical platforms, it's possible to connect to the data with a wide variety of tools, so anything ranging from large-scale data processing to advanced analytics tools in a flexible and scalable manner. Now, here's some key considerations when setting up a modern data architecture, specifically focusing on clinical data. We start with the tool selection. Scalability should be considered when working with growing volumes of data and growing number of data sets being ingested. It's important that the tools can be integrated with one another to take into account the flexibility provided by the tools and, of course, the costs associated. Next, we have the computing considerations. Clinical trial data can be extensive and may require robust computing power. In those cases, distributed computing is a good solution to ensure data processing in large volume can be done in a speedy manner. Also, the computing power is important when running complex models such as neural networks or deep learning, as these tend to require intensive computing resources to be handled effectively. Next, we have data privacy, and this is a critical aspect that needs to be present in any data architecture, but especially when dealing with sensitive personal data such as medical information. There are common techniques that can be used to ensure data privacy, including anonymization, pseudonymization, encryption, and access control. Next, we have data regulations. There are different regulations in different regions of the world. One example is the GDPR that is applied in Europe that ensures things like right of access and erasure, data portability, and data protection officers for the use of personal data. Since there are other regulations in other parts of the world, we must be sure to be compliant with all regulations from regions in which our data is originated and stored. And finally, we have HIPAA compliance, which is a legal requirement when working with protected health information within the United States. We can ensure HIPAA compliance through Business Associate Agreements, or BAAs, which are legal agreements between the organization and the third-party vendors who are storing the data. Please keep in mind that not all tools offer HIPAA compliance options, so this is a critical aspect to take into consideration when designing a data architecture for clinical trial data. There are multiple cloud solutions that provide the benefits of a modern data architecture and are suitable to store, process, and analyze clinical trial data. One of the tools which we will explore today is Databricks, which is a unified data and analytics platform that aligns very well with the considerations we've shared so far. Some of the benefits provided by Databricks include the distributed computing, which allows the speedy processing of large data volumes, the easy integration with other tools. It presents robust features for data privacy and security, and it has the option of HIPAA compliant agreements. All of this while also providing a collaborative environment for development, the availability of open source packages, and reliable data engineering solutions, making this a very interesting and adequate tool to be included in a data architecture containing clinical trial data. I will now hand it over to Fernando, who will talk about advanced analytics.
Let's now talk about what kind of analysis you can reach on your data and some challenges that come with that. Most organizations have some sort of analytics on their data, but it's often limited to the left side of this chart I'm about to build. Basic aggregations such as sums and counts, as well as descriptive statistics as means and standard deviations, are easy to interpret and are very transparent metrics. These are all within arm's reach with basic data organization. On the other end of this continuum here, we have the group characterized as advanced analytics, such as regression and classification predictive models, as you mentioned in one of the use cases, clustering, simulations, and ultimately neural networks. This type of analytics is much more opaque, harder to interpret, and requires intensive computational power. It's not about maturity or when it's better than the other. It's more a spectrum, and the important thing is to find balance between topics. In the clinical trial sense, it's very important to interpret, and finding the right balance between interpretability and complexity is critical. Besides that, it's very difficult to build such complex analytics without a robust data architecture. Building the architecture and maintaining its reliability is the first part of the considerations, as we have seen in the previous section. And a different set of challenges arise once you start thinking about advanced analytics, but having a modern data architecture in place can massively help to make these challenges easier. Let's now talk about these challenges. Turns out that the biggest challenge about the ML lifecycle in advanced analytics is not the ML code itself. It's all about data. And in order to even begin any ML development, you need to have good data. For this reason, you need reliable data exploration and engineering, both in terms of quality and storage, to run your data science projects successfully. Especially when you want to do analytics at scale, you need efficient data engineering techniques and tools to be able to achieve the results you expect. Next is with tracking the experiments and versions. When you are just working with files on your laptop or in an interactive notebook, how do you tell which data, code, parameters, hyperparameters went into getting a particular result? This is especially challenging if you want another data scientist to use your same code, or if you want to run the same code at scale on another platform, for example, the cloud. Another thing is that with ML, there's no standard way to package and deploy models. Every data science team comes up with its own approach for each ML library that it uses, and the link between a model and the code, parameters that produced it is often lost. Also, often the data science team creates many models, and in absence of a central place to collaborate and manage a model lifecycle, they face challenges in how they manage model stages. Next, it's with interpreting results and keeping features organized and accessible, which can be really difficult if your data has a large amount of features. With clinical data, this is especially true due to the nature of it. For example, laboratory results. If you then combine a large amount of different clinical studies to those large amount of features, a structure to keep data sets and features organized is necessary. And finally, the complexity of mathematical modeling needed to develop ML models, or even model survival analyzing systems, pharmacokinetic behaviors, or even check correlation between features in this industry. With all this said, how can a modern data architecture help with these? It all comes down to having a robust data platform where modern technologies and the many benefits that they bring can thrive and unleash all of your data's potential. Here are some examples of technologies that can help you overcome these challenges. All of these can help you trim the edges of the advanced analytics flow by helping with, for example, quick starting applications, pre-trained models, tracking, data exploration, and so on. And combined with a solid and robust data architecture beneath it and other technologies, these tools can take our data from zero to productionized ML in a single environment. We have laid down here examples from the three largest cloud providers: Azure ML from Microsoft, SageMaker from AWS, Vertex AI from Google, and Databricks, which is cloud agnostic and can be run on clouds from all three previous cloud providers. I'll deep dive in Databricks as an example of how can a modern technology and a modern data architecture build a solid foundation for performing advanced analytics in your data. So Databricks is a powerful tool for all of your data engineering workloads, and ensuring reliable data, as I mentioned, is critical to successful machine learning. And to enable better data quality, Databricks has a handful of data exploration features, such as the data profiler, which generates an analysis for the different features of that data frames that you've engineered in just a few clicks, simplifying a task that would otherwise consume a few lines of code. This enables quick identification of data schemas, value outliers, missing data, and as the name suggests, a data profile for each of the columns, including the distribution graph. Another great feature are the native plotting capabilities within Databricks. With it, you can quickly select columns from your data and visualize them in a clean and interactive graph, again, with just a few clicks. Besides native capabilities, you can also normally use any plotting library of your liking. Just install, import it, and use it like normal Python. That takes us to the next very impactful feature here, the pre-installed libraries. Machine learning involves different libraries than typical data engineering workflows. And to reduce setup time, Databricks created the ML runtime cluster options with popular libraries pre-installed, allow you to feature engineer, rapidly experiment without having additional time spent setting up your cluster. Using Databricks also makes Spark distributed processing available for you to faster process your data. And one great addition is also MLflow, which also allows you to track experiments, hyperparameters, and so on. During experimentation, you'll be creating multiple experiments with multiple runs of each experiment as you tune your inputs. Keeping track and easily comparing the results and sharing those results with your colleagues is simplified in a modern data architecture and in Databricks. After creating an experiment, for example, it is tracked within the experiments menu in the machine learning perspective. Within each experiment, you can then explore various runs to determine which one was most successful based on metrics. As I mentioned before, you can also use libraries like MLflow to track and manage your experiments here. Machine learning uses existing data to build a model to predict future outcomes. In almost all cases, the raw data requires pre-processing and transformation before it can be used to build a model. This process is called feature engineering, and the outputs of this process are called features, the building blocks of the model. Developing these features is complex and time-consuming. And for example, if you can do data engineering only once on medical history data, for example, to allow data scientists to use those these engineered features, it would be great. An additional complication is that for machine learning, feature calculations need to be done for model training, then again when the model is used to make predictions. These implementations may not be done by the same team or using the same code environment, which can lead to delays and errors. And also, different teams in different organizations will often have similar feature needs, but not be aware of the work that other teams have done. And that's why Feature Store is designed to address these problems and keep features and datasets accessible for the teams. And to finalize this section, Databricks is also a great collaborative platform. Data scientists can collaborate in real time, adding notebooks where teams can edit and run commands while also sharing their progress with their team. And here is where we wrap up this event. Through this end-to-end view, from use cases, architecture design, considerations, to the analysis, we hope that this event provided a holistic view on how to unleash the full potential of advanced clinical data analysis. The various clinical data science use cases are all made possible by utilizing a modern data architecture with specific technologies and tools. This modern data architecture provides the storage, compute power, scalability, security, and much more to allow for these clinical data problems to be solved through data science and advanced analytics. The interaction between tools, collaboration within development, and accessibility of open source packages are just a few more of the reasons a modern data architecture is a great option to perform advanced analytics on clinical data. The generated insights from some advanced methods complement the traditional statistics regularly applied on the industry's data It can bring great extra value to your analysis. If you have any questions or would like to discuss any specific use cases from your organizations, please reach out to us. And here is where we say goodbye. Thank you all for joining today, and please feel free to get in touch to our emails here on screen and explore our other content on our website. Thank you.